Okay, it's about 12:01 Eastern. It is a beautiful Wednesday here. The rain's gone and timed for this week's PracticePower coaching webcast. So I'm Coach Joe Lucas. I am the creator, founder, curator of the soon-to-be new PracticePower Academy. And what we want to do with these webcasts is a couple different things. Number one is always be adding value to your PracticePower membership. And then also to, which I love to do, is coach. You know, this is something I've done for nearly 25 years. And so I always like taking questions and troubleshooting and things like that. I recognize that we have a number of new people that have never been on a webcast before, at least on this webcast. So I want to kind of walk everybody through how these operate, the kind of rules of the road, if you will, so that everybody's on the same page. So on these webcasts, we do a couple different things. First off is that if there are any updates to PracticePower/PracticePower Academy, I want to share them with you here, therefore you have them. In addition to that, I will always pick some topics that I find relevant for the week. And normally what I'll do is I'll look at what I've done with some of my personal coaching clients, some topics, some issues, some strategies that have come up, and I really want to make sure that we go ahead and handle those things. We'll also give you an opportunity to post questions either during the registration process, or if you have the GoToWebinar app open, you'll see there's an opportunity to submit a question, which you can do live. And if you have something, my first reaction is going to be to try to call you and unmute you and have you participate, give you some clarity on what we're doing here from that perspective, and to add value. So this is not a I'm going to speak and you're going to listen. A lot of the topic or agenda for these webcasts are really going to be driven by what you want to, the questions that you, the participants, submit to me. As a member of PracticePower, we do 3 webcasts a month. We did the first June one last Wednesday. We're doing one today, and we'll do our 3rd one for the month next Wednesday. So I don't have any questions right now, so what I'd like to do is just kind of go through the agenda. We're scheduled up to an hour, but normally 30, 45 minutes, that seems to do it for everybody. So let's get rolling. So first off, if you already have access to PracticePower, you'll notice that there's some changes that have taken place in the last 24 to 36 hours, and we've uploaded our new theme and our new dashboard, and things are moving. We've hit some glitches, as always with technology, nothing that we can't fix. Some of you, I know, have put some help desk tickets in through Rhino about where's my business plan, where's my game plans, everything like that. Everything is safe, because I have my stuff on there too, by the way. And the link just broke. Several of the links broke between the database and rendering it. They're working on that today, so we expect to have that up in the next, by the end of today, hopefully. And then we're still on track for our July 1st PracticePower rollout. A couple of things regarding the new Academy. One of the enhancements that we have is this webcast. So if you're a member of PracticePower 3 times a month, you'll be able to come in on a Wednesday at noon, spend some time with me, get your questions asked, get coached, right, pick my brain. Again, this is what I do 24/7, 365. Take advantage of that. In addition, also, we'll have a new message center where I'll get back to putting brain food, some other links and things like that, where I can share what I'm reading, what I'm listening to, what I'm watching. So some really good personal development stuff from that perspective. You'll also have an opportunity to work with your own personal coach if you choose to do that. What I've done with PracticePower Academy is I want you to think of it this way. It's like a high-end health club, high-end fitness club, right? You have the machines, you have the class, which is like a class, right? And it's 24/7. And then if you want personal training or personal coaching, you go get yourself a personal coach, right? We'll have that available to you. The other big announcement is, and we're going to do this upcoming December, and I'll announce the dates in July. We're going to do a 3-day live business planning webcast. So just like we're doing now, but I'm going to walk you through the entire business planning process as if you were coming to Orlando or attending one of my retreats. We're going to do it over 3 days. I'm going to walk you through the templates, walk you through all the questions, walk you through the planning process, and you'll be able to ask and submit questions to me. And we're going to do it live. So it's going to be something very cool. I'm very excited by that. And then that will happen somewhere around mid-December of this year. And again, we'll announce a date at that point. Okay. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the next piece because I want to get to my topics, all right? But some of you asked this from last week, so here it is. If you're a current Elite Access person, or in the old days, I think it used to be called Gold membership, right, or full membership, and you like your deal, keep it. No, we're not going to change anything on you. If you want to go ahead and take advantage of some offers down the road, Elite Access annual membership will be $500 versus $995, and that will start in July, so be aware of that. And then for anybody new coming in, once we roll out Academy, it's going to be $95 a month for all the goodies that we do. Also, I've decided, to do this, which is pretty cool. I'm going to offer 10 lifetime memberships, $1,500, done deal. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. This is not a pitch webinar. There'll be emails going out to everybody over the next couple of weeks with ways to take advantage of it, stuff like that. So enough of that. Let's talk about what I want to talk about today, though. I've got 3 things I want to go over. And basically, this has come from a couple client calls I've had earlier this week, and then at the latter part of last week. And I want to reiterate, some of these topics to you. Then I'll get to your questions. First off, getting prospects to commit. One of the things I think we have to recognize in our space is that our buyer, our decision maker, our prospect, by and large right now is what I'll call, maybe not overeducated, but has too much information, right? The internet, TV, radio, they're coming in now with a lot of preconceived notions. And what I find times, and this is, I'm going to go to one of my conversations actually yesterday with one of my personal clients, and this person is very successful, but the gap they have in their process is that when they meet with prospects and they go ahead and talk about doing a plan or putting a proposal out there, they kind of send them off to think about it, and they kind of leave it like open-ended, right? And what happens is that if human beings don't have deadlines, they'll take as much time as they need. And you got to remember, when you're in a decision-making or influence mode, right? So meeting. There's a flow to these things. There's a rhythm to this. There's momentum to these things. And the worst thing you can ever do is let a prospect kind of go hanging off there with no timeline. It's like, I call it the black hole of follow-up, and then you're just chasing stuff forever. What you need to do is, if someone has to think about something, so let's say you're talking to a prospect or even a client, and you're proposing something. Maybe it's a change in their portfolio, maybe it's a new recommendation totally, whatever it is. One of the questions you need to ask is, how much time do you think you need to mull this over, to just think through it, right? I'm never going to say decide, because that means they have an option to say no. And I don't want to plant that seed. So I'm always going to use a term, say think it over, mull it over, ponder it, whatever, right? How much time do you think you're going to need for that? And I'm going to ask that question very specifically for the following reasons. How they answer the question tells me how committed they are. So for example, if I'm talking to somebody and says, well, Joe, I just need a day or two, right, to just want to sleep on it. And by the way, there are people that in their decision-making processes, they need to ponder it. They need to think about it. That's what they need to do. So if you try to push that or violate that, you're going to break rapport. So getting back to my thing, so if they say like a day or two, I know that they're fairly committed. They just need a little time to think about it, and I'll say, okay, great. So either A, let's schedule up a call, B, let's schedule up another meeting, C, whatever we need to do, right? But I want to let them know that that's the window to that commitment. Now, if somebody says to you, well, give me a couple of weeks, right? You know immediately that they're not committed, that there's something that we're missing, right? And unless there's an external reason, for example, maybe they're traveling, maybe they got a vacation coming up, and that might make sense. But what you never do is leave it open-ended. If you leave things open-ended, it's problematic. The other strategy, which I love, for those of you who do proposals, is you always want to put on your proposal at the end, this proposal is good for the next 30 days, 45 days, 30 days is about right. Why do we do that? Because the market may change. the dynamics may change in their plan, right? And your pricing may change. So I want to let them know that this thinking is only good for a certain period of time. You've got to give people timelines and deadlines to commit. If you don't do that, remember this, the typical human being procrastinates. The typical human being hates change, okay? And they're afraid of that change. Well, you have to remember that you represent change to every prospect. Every referral you get, I don't care how you get in front of somebody, whether it's referral, networking, seminars, COIs, that whenever you're in front of somebody, you're an agent of change. And when you're that agent of change, that's fearful for most people. So you've got to keep them on a track, all right? Don't leave things open-ended. I just want to make that comment. It's incredibly important. Next topic, and I'm going to tell you some stories. I think it's a big deal here. I am shifting all of my clients as much as I can into what I call planning-centric. And what planning-centric means is as follows. The old model, and I used to teach this model, so this is a change for me also, was first meeting, we come in, establish rapport. If you followed my meeting mastery process, build rapport, needs, wants, wounds, interview them, things like that. We don't discuss their portfolio. We don't discuss their plan. We don't discuss anything, right? Then we bring them back in because we're not going to go through all that rigmarole if they're not really qualified economically and emotionally. And then what we would do is in the second meeting, we would get their tax returns and their statements and all that, and we kind of deal with the portfolio, right, from that perspective. And then the third meeting, we would go ahead and present our recommendations, what we'd like to do, our proposal, quasi-plan, if you will. And then with the goal being that we've created enough compelling reasons, both logically and emotionally, for them to say yes to us. And that was what I taught for 20 years. And it worked. However, things are changing, right? Things are evolving. So here's the new model. And I've got clients that are doing this, highly successful. First one is we do an interview, right? So really, the first meeting doesn't really change very much, right? The second meeting is we actually do the technical meeting, but here's the difference. We're going to offer a project, a paid project, and I'll explain what that means in a second, where we want to do a financial plan. Now, that could be something as sophisticated as a Money Guide Pro or whatever you have available, to just some retirement income analysis, right, and net worth, anything in between. But here's the thing: in the second meeting, they're going to stroke a check and sign a document for this planning process. And then obviously third, fourth, fifth meeting, as you're doing your plan, you're working with them on a project. Now, why are we doing this? Number one is that I think if you don't become planning centric, and I think Edward kind of mentioned this I got his question at the last minute, is that talk about relevancy, right? And how do you combat robo-advisors and things like that? Well, if we're just dealing with portfolio management and not planning, we're going to get commoditized. And I think that's a huge challenge. So by becoming more planning centric, it gives us the opportunity to not just add value, but an exchange of value. So here's the thing. A lot of advisors in the past would give away the financial plan as a quid pro quo. I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to waive my fee / do it for free, because at the end of the day, I'm going to expect you to reciprocate and bring your money to me, or let me implement what we come up with. And people are smart. And what they realize is that they're in a selling scenario. Even though we're doing planning, it's still selling. So what happens when we become planning centric is now we are asking to be compensated. And here's the interesting part. It doesn't matter what you charge. I've got clients that will charge $500 for initial plan. I've got clients that will charge $5,000 for initial plan, and anywhere in between. It doesn't matter the amount. Here's what matters. They sign their name and they stroke a check. Here's the interesting part. Of the clients of mine that have this process in place, 9 out of 10 people, 9 out of 10, 90%, who sign up for planning ultimately bring the assets and the business to us. The only time it does not occur is if they want to try it themselves first and try to implement the plan themselves, which I thought was a very high number, and it's kind of surprised me. I'll be very open and honest with everybody. I was a little surprised by that ratio, but then I thought about it a little bit, and it dawned on me, here's why. When they sign your planning agreement, ADV, whatever you need them to sign, when they sign it and they stroke a check, in their mind, they've hired you. They've hired you. It doesn't matter whether the assets are in their 401k plan, at a competitor. In their mind, they've retained you. This planning process now is an exchange of value, no longer a quid pro quo. Totally different psychology around it. Very different. And I believe now, when I redo meeting mastery and how I'm going to teach it going forward, is my first thing is get them in a project, whether it's a planning project, an analysis of their current portfolio / second opinion, right? We need to charge for those, income planning, insurance review, whatever we need to do. We've got to have a way of getting them to hire us for a project. It changes the dynamic of the selling process, and I think that's one of the big ahas I've had this year, and just having some clients test this. And by the way, just so we're all clear, I've got clients that are doing this in wirehouses, who are independent, insurance-oriented, RIA, all right, global, doesn't matter. Here's the beauty of this. It's like dating before you get married. It's an easier decision for them to make. And here's the other thing too. If they can't stroke you, let's just use $1,000. If they can't stroke a $1,000 check for you to do some planning for your time, what kind of client do you think they're going to make? You think they're going to value what you do? That's the difference, right? So keep that in mind. So I just want to offer that from a planning-centric perspective, that I do believe there's now a definitive shift that I see in how we're going to onboard and deal with prospects going forward. All right. Third topic that I want to cover today, and then I get to your questions, is there's this other piece, and I've seen this in my career, and I think because we're all human beings and we're all emotional, that we get kind of caught up in this stuff from time to time. And to me, it's about prospects. So let me give you a scenario. And there's several different scenarios, but let me give you a couple of them real quick. So scenario one, I don't care how you get in front of the person. You go through a couple meetings, it becomes time to sign on the dotted line, whatever you're doing, right? And they disappear, right? They vaporize, or they kind of, well, let me think about it, or they kind of do the dance. We all know what that means, right? And nothing happens. And maybe we put a little time, maybe we put a lot of time into this. Again, I don't know. And what happens is, our ego gets hurt. I don't care what everybody says, that's what happens, right? And here's kind of how this works. We actually get angry, but what we really are is hurt because they rejected us. And so we say things like, well, they were never going to do anything anyway. I knew they were never going to make a change. Then why'd you meet with them? If you thought that, then why waste your time, right? Or they're never going to be ready. And you know what? I don't think they make a good client anyway, and just screw them, right? Or worse, you can use some other fun words in there, right? And you kind of just dismiss them, and you kind of go into screw it mode, right? And you don't follow up, you don't ping them, you don't put them on your newsletter list, you don't invite them to events because you say, yeah, they don't deserve me, right? That's a very, very expensive psychology to have in our industry over a career. You have to remember that this is never, if you make this always about yourself and not about other people, you'll do okay in this industry. You'll still make money because it's such a dynamic industry. But you're not going to capture what you could capture. You're going to leave a lot of money and a lot of relationships on the table, as I like to say. And there's no reason for that. So a couple things. Number one, unless they're a total ass, and they exist, you always want to make sure you're following up on your people. So here's my protocol. If they're not ready for a relationship with you, here's the model. Number one, always put them on your newsletter list. Number two, make sure that on a regular basis you're inviting them to your client/hybrid events. incredibly important, right? So you keep them in the loop, because here's what we find. If you have a prospect that comes to one of your client events as your guest, 80 to 90% probability they're going to become a client. Why? Because they're going to sit with your clients, they're going to talk to them, your clients. Here's the beauty of this. Your clients will actually do a better job at selling you than you can ever do yourself, because they're true advocates, and they'll say things that you would never feel comfortable saying. So that's why you always want to have them on the list. And then, quite frankly, whether it's once a quarter or twice a year, I want you to ping them. Now, pinging, P-I-N-G. I think if you send them an email, a letter, leave a voicemail, text, whatever you're comfortable with doing, but you'll want, hey, how are things going? Want to check in on you, want to know if you're ready to get started yet. You're always going to be rolling out the red carpet. You're always going to be inviting them to come back in, because it's not about you, right? So check your ego at the door. Egos in this business, there are two emotions, so I'm thinking about it now. There are two emotions that cost advisors hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of income in their career. Number one is their own arrogance, that they think they're smarter than anybody else, that they got it figured out, that they don't need any help, that they don't need any accountability, and their own ego, which is it's all about them. If you could put those things on the side, all things are possible in this industry. So I just want to make that comment to you, okay? So again, check the door, check your ego at the door, never give up on people. And all of you have had this, I'm sure. Somebody that you thought was dead from a business standpoint, right? And out of the blue, they call you, they email you, they find you on LinkedIn, whatever it is, right? And then all of a sudden, hey, we're back in business, not because you did a great job, because now they're ready, right? So for every one of those you get, there's another 10 you don't get, because they're not being invited to the dance. So keep that in mind. Okay. So time now to get into some questions. So here's what we do. Every time we do a webcast, in the registration, you have the opportunity to submit a question, and I handle them as best I can. And if you happen to be here, I always try to get you on the call or on the webcast so I can ask some follow-up questions. And also, by the way, we always record these. So if you miss one or have to leave early or show up late, in the invitation, there's always a link to a replay of the previous one, so it's always going to be there. And right now we're putting them up on my YouTube channel. Eventually, when this becomes elite access only, they'll be housed on PracticePower in a certain area where you can, in an archive where you can view them. So you'll have opportunities to do that. All right, I got 4 questions from Jim, Susan, Mike, and Edward. So we're going to go in order here. So Jim asked, I've had times when I crush it and then I fall back in my old bad habits. How do I break the pattern, right? So the first thing, and let me see real quick if I'm looking off to the side, it's just because I have my control panel here. I don't see Jim being here, so I'm just going to go ahead and answer the question as I think it needs to be answered. So here's the first thing. The question you have to ask yourself is what precipitates the fallback? So here's what I mean. Human beings, you got to remember this. We all, as human beings, are pattern-based creatures. Habits, right? You have a certain habit in the morning, certain habit throughout the day, how you approach things, and so on and so forth. It's habits/patterns, right? So if somebody's inconsistent in their, in going forward, right, in their growth, in their evolution, there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one is they actually get uncomfortable with success, which I know sounds bizarre coming out of my mouth, but let me hear me out. Every one of us has a vision of what we think we're about, what we deserve, what we're capable of. It's our self-image. It's the person in the mirror, right? Look at it that way. And depending on your programming, and let me explain what I mean by programming, depending on your inputs, who influenced you, who raised you, how you're shaped and molded, there's some old programming in there. And sometimes it sounds like this. People that make a lot of money take advantage of other people, right? Or people that have a lot means that they are not good people, or they took from others, or they're not godly or spiritual or caring, whatever it is, right? Or even worse, that you feel like you're a fraud, that you're a fake, that you're lucky, right? If some of you walk around feeling like you're lucky, and that's how your whole career is based on luck, from that perspective, really, really challenging, right? So a couple things you have to ask yourself. So what caused you to fall back? So it looks like this. And by the way, I can look at somebody's production run for their career, and I can tell because it looks like this. Good period of time, man, getting too successful, sabotage. Man, have no money, better pick it up, and it goes all the way through it. So a couple things. How do you stop yourself from falling back into habits? You've got to basically erase the record. You got to change the grooves. So how do you break a pattern? New dynamics, right? So bottom line is, if you haven't tried everything, then you haven't really tried everything. So a couple of recommendations. First off, mental diet, morning ritual. That's number one. What are you feeding your brain with, right? What are you doing to change that pattern? I call it the man or woman on your shoulder, right? What's whispering in your ears, positive and negative? Do you believe you deserve it? So on and so forth. Number one. Number two, and this may sound so self-serving, I get it, but I'm going to say it because I believe it, get a coach, and get a damn good coach. Somebody's going to kick your ass and stop you from doing what you do, right? Because you just don't wake up one day in a bad place. What happens is you go south over time. Here's the problem in our industry with that. You could right now be in a great place. Your checking account looks good, your production looks good, everything. And you could just wake up and you go into one of those, one of these swoons, right? It's not going to show up in your numbers for 60 to 90 days. Because you have a pipeline, you have momentum. So in other words, you get up late, you stop doing your morning ritual, you stop reading your business plan, you fire your coach, right? Or you decide not to hire one. I got it all figured out. And trust me, I've had clients back and forth this way for decades. And then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you go, crap, I got no momentum, I've got no pipeline, and I've got no money. And what do? Back to basics. Man, I got to get started. I got to get my monthly game plan going, my morning ritual going. I got this. And then you get rolling on that, but you're still frustrated, freaked out because, again, you just don't flick a switch and boom, it's there. So I think the first thing is every day. So how do you make sure patterns don't start that are negative? Every day you check yourself. Did I do my morning ritual? Do I have my daily game plan? Did I make my contacts? Did I set my meetings? Did I talk about referrals and introductions? Did I do the things that are necessary for me to be successful every day? There are two questions I ask my clients to ask themselves. One in the morning, what am I going to do today to grow my business? Question one. Question two, in the evening, what did I do today to grow my business? And if you don't have good answers to those questions, guess what? Change it. All right? Because when you're crushing it, my sense of the matter, Jim, is because you have to, you have no choice, and then all of a sudden you get a bank account, you get a little, excuse my language, no disrespect, you get fat, dumb, and lazy, and okay, I can coast now until the bank account drops, and then you go into freak out mode again. So I want to keep that going. Next, let's go to Susan. I have a summer intern starting with me. How best to utilize them? Great question. Let me see if she's here. She is, but she is not mic'd up, unfortunately. So I'm going to have to roll with this on my own. So first off, I love interns. A lot of my clients use interns. I think, as an industry, our utilization of them has changed over time. Years ago, interns were nice. They were just free cold callers that we just put on the phone with a phone book or a list, and we burn them out, right? Today, now, it's very different. I think interns come into three different categories, if I can. You have your technical intern, maybe somebody that's studying for their CFP, economics major, something like that, who can help you with analysis, planning, spreadsheets, that kind of stuff, right? Very cool. You have your marketing intern. They can help you with your website, social media, reviewing your marketing materials, all the things that maybe even events, all the things that maybe you're hard-pressed to get done from that perspective. And then the third intern is sort of like the floater, the everything intern, right? scanning, data input, projects, right? So the key thing, you don't want to spend a ton of time training interns because they're not going to stay around very long. So what you want to do is look for something that I can train them for a little bit and get a lot out of them. So repetitive type task, right? That's always what you want to be utilizing them for. That's what I'd have them do, quite frankly. And I've got clients that used interns as actually a pipeline of talent. So they'll bring them in their sophomore, junior year of college. They'll summer intern, and they can work throughout their semester, and we change their hours. We love that, right? And then when they graduate, if they've done a good job for us and they spent some time with us, a lot of times we'll make them an offer. And I've got several clients, if you were to look at their websites and their teams, you sit there and go, well, that was an intern, that person was an intern. Out of like 7 people, 5 were interns at one point or another, right? It's a great way to get bandwidth very cost effectively. It's a great way to spot fill certain talent, right, from that. One of my clients, I spoke to him yesterday, he just hired a gal. She goes to school full-time, even in the summer. She comes in 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. every day. Newsletter, social media, website. She's going to class for, I think, marketing / social media. So he's having her do all his stuff, and that's something his normal assistant right now just doesn't have the time to do, because if you have a really good assistant, they're your front line. You want them handling clients, being the relationship manager, handling all those things to keep that goodwill strong. That's what you really ultimately want, right? You don't want them sidebar projects that take them away from what they need to do. So just kind of keep that in mind. Best way to use them is that, and like I said, I would run interns throughout the year if I can do that, quite frankly. Mike asks, I have not updated my website in a few years. Ooh, okay, so nothing personal there. Do I need to spend the time and money on this? A very basic but very provoking question. The answer is absolutely yes. So let me give you kind of where my current thinking is on website and this whole social media thing, by the way. So the whole social media piece, like LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter, some of you can do more than others, obviously, based on whether you're an RA and your compliance and stuff like that. From a pure business generation, revenue generation scenario, I think the jury's still out in a lot of ways on social media in our space because we're so regulated. However, I think LinkedIn is extremely powerful for business intelligence. Where else can you go look at your clients' Rolodexes online, right, if you're connected to them, and things like that. So there are some really cool things you can do with that. But I want to talk specifically because Mike asked about the website. So years ago, and most of you can remember this, first impressions, right? So when somebody was referred to you, or they somehow found you, how was first impression? First impression happened one of 2 ways. How you sounded on the phone when you called them for the first time, or they called your office and you spoke to them, or how you looked and your office looked when they came in for their first meeting. Those were first impressions. That is no longer the truth. First impressions today are entirely based on what a person finds online. And typically, and I've done this, and you can do this to yourself, by the way, Google your own name. 2 things are going to show up. Number one, if you have a LinkedIn profile, it's going to show up because LinkedIn is just very SEO friendly, okay? And that needs to be top-notch. Some people in this industry still don't have their photo on LinkedIn, or it's a photo from when they graduated college, like 30 years ago. They don't look like them anymore, right? So what are you hiding? And their profile is skinny. They put no time and energy into it. So first impression, not very good. On the website, your website is your storefront. It's the first impression. So people, this is the way it works. And think about your own behaviors. When somebody recommends something to you, maybe it's a restaurant, maybe it's a consultant, maybe it's a doctor, another professional, it doesn't matter what it is, another service, right? How many of you, the first thing you do is, oh, let me go check them out online. Let me go see. And how many of you have drawn a conclusion on the professionalism, the success, the probability of them meeting your needs based on how their website looked? Because we've all done it, right? So my point is this. Your website is your storefront. It needs to be as dynamic, as dynamite, as powerful, as compelling, as cutting edge as possible, because that is actually the first impression. You know, I've got clients that work out of their house. They work out of their home, make $500,000 a year. They do most of their work virtually, and they have killer websites because that's the first impression. Nobody cares about the other stuff. So you need to have that. My recommendation is a couple of things. Number one, at each quarter, what you want to do is when you do what I call your quarterly strategic day, when you take a day just to kind of look at your business. You all need to do that, by the way. One of the things we want to review and check is going to be what's our online presence look like? Does the website need to be updated? Are we posting our newsletter there and drawing people to it? Check with your provider. Usually, Emerald's a big gorilla in our space. Hey, what else can we do with Emerald? Can we do any more customization? Can we do video? Can we do anything dynamic? What does that look like, right? You need to be very, very clear on all that and put a budget around that. And same thing with your LinkedIn profile. Make sure it's dynamic and quite frankly, make sure that you're connected to all your clients, your social networks, friends and family, because again, you get access to who they know. All right. Last one, Edward. And I do believe Edward's actually here, so we're going to try this and see how this works. So Edward, I'm going to unmute you. So depending, if how you're set up, maybe you could enlighten us a little bit. So you're live. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How are you?
Yeah, and I can hear you. Very cool. So what's the best way to stay relevant and continue to be successful given robo-advisors, regulated, etc.? So expand upon your question, and then let's have a conversation around it.
Sure. I just find that, I've been doing this now 13 years and change at this point. I know you and I go way back. And I just find that this industry is changing a lot. And I think it's becoming more challenging in a lot of ways where you're spending time on, well, I hear myself twice. I'm hearing myself echo, so I don't know what causing
No,
that.
we're okay. No, we're okay. Answer your question. Go ahead.
Okay, so, well, I'm echoing, Joe, so it's kind of throwing me off. I'm hearing myself twice. Could you hear me twice, Joe?
No, we're fine. No, we have no echoes, on at least on my line. We're fine.
Yeah, it's on my line. I wonder if essentially what it is, though, Joe, is the between the DOL regulation, the changing mindset for the younger consumer, like the millennials. You were just talking about staying relevant by way of your website. That is kind of music to my ears because I'm in the process of digging into that. And the whole idea that we're competing with automation, right? With and that we're constantly being questioned on fees, and we always have to look for new ways to add value.
Right.
And then just the more demands being placed on our time. I mean, all this additional state training that's required. I just think there are more demands on our time that take us away from working in the business than actually doing the things that we love.
Right.
And that's the part that has been a little bit disheartening for me, to be quite frank with you.
Okay. So you don't get your eardrums blown, I'm going to put you back on mute, and I'm going to answer your question and put some comments on the board. Okay? Is that okay with you? Cool. Yep. Excellent. All right. Nice to know. By the way, nice seeing you again. So, let's cover everything. So, he brought some very, very good distinctions, right, in terms of things are changing. And I think the pace of change in this industry is going to accelerate, quite frankly. So much so, in fact, I have actually put a study group together of clients that we cover all these things. We look at what the model of this industry is going to look like in 2025. Our mission statement is, what does the industry look like in 2025, and then how do we take advantage of it in kind of broad strokes, right? So let me answer his questions in somewhat of an order if I can. Robo-advisor automation. There's a lot of noise around that. I have studied this and continue to study this. I consult with a lot of my industry experts that I've gotten to know over decades, and here's kind of my interpretation of all this. I think pure robo, pure, which means I don't want to work with people. I just want to go log in, go, get an allocation based on risk tolerance and time horizon, blah, 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 blah. And I'm cool paying 25 bips and I don't want to be bothered, click. I think that's going to appeal to a small percentage of the global population, and here's why. Those are the people that are always, the psychology of somebody who's going to go that route is primarily going to be a do-it-yourselfer who says, oh, I've got a new tool where I can still do it myself, right? They're not interested in a relationship with an advisor. They're not interested in anything collaborative or so on and so forth. So, I think there's a lot of, when I say overblown angst, if you will, in the industry from a pure tech robo standpoint. Now, where I think the killer app on robo is collaborative with an advisor, where the automation exists to free the advisor up to do the planning, to work with the relationship, right? And Edward, I agree. The value add in the future is going to look like this. We are going to be planners, we are going to be educators, and we're going to be coaches to our clients. Those are the three value propositions, and the planning, the asset management and all the other stuff is going to be automated, or you'll have the opportunity to automate. Great example. On the global sense, there's Vanguard, and everybody's worried about, Betterment and Wealthfront and all these other people. Let me tell you who's got the killer app out there. It's Vanguard. Because for, I think, 35 or 50 bips, if you got enough money, you'll get an automated platform. Plus, they'll hook you up with a CFP to do a plan. They've married the two. And so that's the one I look at, go, that's the one that you got to watch, because all they need to do is roll over all their 401k assets into that model, and I think they quadruple their income, their revenue stream as a company. It's ridiculous, right? Because all the money they manage. That's the one that really you need to need to be aware of, and we are going to have regulation, but Edward, let me say this, because I know you and I've talked in the past, and you're still a pretty young guy. So here's my take on this whole thing. We're going to have less people 5 years from now. So here's the industry trend. Cerulean Associates, I think, was the organization that did the study. They predicted, I think it was 200 or 250,000 advisors would age out of our industry in the next 10 years. I think it's like 20,000 a year, starting this year, as a matter of fact. The average age, depending on whose data you look at, is the average financial advisor is 58 years old. That's the average. So that means you got some dudes in their 90s still doing this thing, right? And then you've got younger people. Bottom line is we're going to have a lot of people in this industry. We're not even going to be close to replacing them on a one-for-one. We're just not, okay? In addition to that, we have the bow wave of baby boomers retiring. So we've got two things that I think I think the golden age of our industry is starting now because of two things, maybe three. The retirement of a majority, or at least a good portion, of the professionals in this industry over the next 5 to 10 years. The retirement of the bulk of the baby boomers with the bulk of the wealth who are going to need help. And the marriage of technology with relationships. You've got to remember something. We as human beings are still, I guess we'll call it creatures of tribes. We still like interactivity. We still want to connect with human beings. Yes, there is a small sliver of people that put them in a closet somewhere and internet and they're happy. I get it. But that's the vast minority. If you can relate to people, connect with people, care with people, educate people, coach people, and they believe that you have their back, you'll never have to worry about growing your business in this industry. You just got to understand the rules of the new game. And I think the challenge that a lot of people in this industry have is they're not looking to adapt. They're bitching and moaning about the changes. I'm not saying Edward, I'm not saying you are, so maybe you're clear on that. They're bitching and moaning about the changes, freaked out over change, and remember, change happens, right? Everything, we always evolve. And I look at this, look, if you know the rules of the new game, you're wide open. You can do anything you want. How many businesses, again, and I'll speak to you directly, Edward, how many, and I think you work in a pretty big office, how many of your colleagues are going to retire in the next 10 years? You operate in New York City. How many books of business do you think you'll be able to have the opportunity to buy in the next 5 or 10 years? I've got a client in New Jersey, which is right across the river from you. We already have 3 books we're in the process of acquiring right now as I speak to you. One on Staten Island, one in northern New Jersey, and one in central New Jersey. All set about $100 million of assets. That opportunity, and that's going to be commonplace over the next 10 years. Not just, wow. You got to know what to look for, right? So the best way to stay relevant is to not ask what I need to do today. So it's kind of a balance point, right? I gotta crush it today, but I gotta figure out my tomorrow. So I gotta make things happen today, but what does my business look like in 5 years? What do I need to have it look like? What do I need to look like in 5 years? That's the differential. Okay? So hopefully that serves you well. And then I do have one question in here. Dave Leo writes, I really like Mike Texas, I hate that name, blog. Learn a lot about financial planning. Yeah, Mike is one of the young, forward-thinking guys in our space. Last name is spelled Kitces, Mike. If you're not reading his blog on a weekly basis, I highly recommend it. He's probably one of the brightest young people in the industry, and I follow him, and I admire him greatly. He gets it. He gets what today and tomorrow are going to look like from that perspective. Okay, so I want to be respectful of your time. We're about 15 minutes into it. Again, thank you all for being here. This recording will be pushed out to you. So for next Wednesday, we'll push this out on either Friday or Monday, and then on Wednesday again you'll get the day of invitation also. So hopefully you found value. It was time well spent. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you all again in 7 days. And with that, we're done.